Without further ado, welcome to the Metabolically Conscious podcast. I'm John Dietary, the founder and head coach at Fast Fit 40 Up, where we help men over 40 achieve powerful metabolic health. Today's guest is Coach Larry Diamond, founder of Healing with the Diamonds, former coach at the Fasting Method, where he spent 6 years working alongside Dr. Jason Fung. In this episode, Coach Larry is going to share some game-changing insights on low-carb, high-fat eating, and something that he calls food freedom, and why seed oils might be quietly sabotaging your health, plus some other really important stuff. It is important to note that this podcast is for education only, okay, guys? It's not medical advice of any kind, but it might just change the way that you think about metabolism. In my practice, I see a lot of men who are hungry all day because they're running on, a carb burning metabolism. And once we switch them over to a higher fat, lower carb rhythm, that hunger just starts kind of fading almost immediately. So Coach Larry, would you share a little bit about your personal journey from a SAD diet to low carb, high fat, and now how you use it in your practice to help other people?
That is such a key understanding that you share with your coaching clients, that we are all biologically hungry in the modern world. And that was one of the key starting points of my journey. I get that we blame ourselves. And I remember, and I wanted to say I'm the co-founder of Healing with the Diamonds with Kalynne, my partner. And one of the things that was like a weight around my quality of life and the human being that I wanted to be, the husband, the dad, the person I wanted to be for everyone on earth, was this chronic hunger. And we tend to blame ourselves. And if I look back at what my conventional medical team said, they essentially were saying, all of your problems, Mr. Diamond, are because you're a glutton and you're a sloth. And, when we say move more, eat less, we're kind of saying that the reason for obesity is gluttony and sloth. And what I say is that when we understand that hunger and being tired all the time are the expected results of the standard American diet, or SAD diet, as you called it, then we have the keys to our healing and our health. So I phrase it this way. When we are primarily burning glucose, blood glucose, and not burning fat, and that if we follow the standard conventional health advice, we will be glucose burners. Glucose is like a twig. So a few things happen. You have the recommended breakfast of high carbs, whole grains, some juice, cereal. What's going to happen there is that there's going to be high insulin produced. And high insulin is the energy storage hormone. So most of that food won't be available to actually fill you up. It'll go to fat storage. Then the high insulin will drop our blood glucose. And because insulin's still high, cortisol goes up. We get hungry again. And once we have a high carb breakfast, I don't care if you're a CEO. I don't care if you're a professional dancer or athlete. People with the most willpower on the planet, you have just set yourself up for being hangry and hungry all day. So I call this the biology of hunger. And it's like a modern albatross around every man's neck, that we can be 300 pounds. I was 290, 400 pounds, or 20 pounds to lose, but we do not have access metabolically. We need to be conscious of this. We do not have metabolic access to burn our own body fat until we understand this and prioritize protein and fat-centric way of eating.
The biology of hunger. I love that. I hear every day about how I'm an emotional eater, I'm a stress eater, I'm working all day, and then you find out what they're eating for breakfast, and it's like, of course you're hungry all day. Like there's no way for you not to be hungry all day. You've turned the switch off to burning any fat in your body. It's supposed to burn, and you're not letting that happen.
Yeah.
That's
So,
brilliant. I love that.
there's a burger chain that has unlimited fries, or at least there was back in 2013 when I started. And I would go there and I would ask for my first order of fries. And we can get into why seed oil fries, or the fries that we would get at a restaurant like this, promote hunger, but maybe fried potatoes at home would not. That's super interesting. But I would get my first order of fries as a free appetizer. Then the burger and fries would come. And then I would get like 3 or 4 or 5 more servings of fries. And my wife was there, and I was, 290 pounds. And I knew internally that I was eating myself to death. I'll be quite honest. And then when I started my journey, my wife said, "You're an emotional eater," because it seemed to her like that I was knowingly potentially ending my life very early. And then I told her, I said, if I am an emotional eater, I eat the same way when we're on vacation, when it's the least stressful day, happiest day. I eat when it's a sad day. I eat when it's happy, when I'm happy. I eat when I'm anxious. I eat when I'm not anxious. I'm just hungry all the time. So I actually started researching that biology of hunger.
What I think is so great about how you coach is you were an ex-science teacher, right? Like that's your foundation, that you came in with science. And I think it's so important to help people understand the science, because if you don't understand why you're doing something, it can be very hard to actually do it. There's also the whole reasoning and mindset, but just focusing on that science, how do you work with your clients to kind of make these really complicated things simple so that they can understand them enough to actually put them in play?
Very good question. So I'm a Primal certified health coach, so I have access to their resources. And I'm able to share that with clients. One of my focuses is what I call to major in the major. So I focus people that protein and fat raise insulin the least amount. They also tend to be the most satiating foods, like whole real foods, especially with protein and fat, raise GLP-1 naturally. So you're right. We spend time covering the basics. And one of the most powerful things I tell clients is think about crowding it out. Think about, which means focus on protein and fat when you sit down to your meal. Don't say you're not going to have XYZ carbs, but just start with protein and fat, and you'll be amazed how much less of the carbs you want, or maybe you won't choose to have them at all. And I also, to your point about you've lost the entire day with a high carb, especially high refined carb breakfast, I have them focus on winning the first meal of the day. So whenever that first meal of the day is, make it protein and fat centric. People can wrap their heads around protein and fat centric, and I give them as many resources as they need. Some people have already heard of Ansel Keys. They know that seed oils are inflammatory, so I start where the person is. If they haven't heard any of this information, then give them as much information that they need to be comfortable understanding what are healthy fats and what are inflammatory fats, and why protein and fat-centric eating is so important.
And I think that when you give them that information, I want to really show them the damage that those inflammatory fats can do, the damage that those unstable double bonded fats can really do to your body. I remember we were talking one time about Chris Kenobi's work in macular degeneration and how that affects us there, and also just in inflammation in the joints and in just cutting off our ability to even burn our fat. How much of that kind of stuff do you go into with your clients, and how do you approach that?
Again, it depends on the client, but it's a great opportunity. Some are aware, but not aware of the whys. And that, like you said, it's very important. And also coming back to being always hungry, even if we're 300, 400, 600 pounds. In addition to the inflammatory impacts of seed oils, and you mentioned Chris Noby, who's a great resource. And I do want to point out that my first client was my wife, and her macular degeneration got better. And her mom in her mid 70s, her macular degeneration got better. And me and my wife simply do not burn in the Texas sun anymore because it doesn't matter. I can go out for 3 hours, 5 hours. Now I've built up my sun tolerance, but without the inflammatory seed oils on my skin, I just do not burn anymore.
Do you tell that story about your wife? Because I remember you sharing that with me. I didn't know it was your wife. I thought it was just your mother-in-law. So the fact that your wife was even able to turn around her macular
Yeah,
degeneration,
that's interesting.
wonderful.
People are hearing
Do
it
you share
here.
that a
We did
lot?
our origin story, and that's not one of the healing uh, magic. I don't know what to call it. It seems like magic. I'm a big science fiction fan. So Arthur C. Clarke had this statement that any sufficiently advanced technology appears like magic. So I haven't heard anyone else say this. Lifestyle that's ancestrally wisdom informed is such high tech that the
Yes.
modern conventional medical system doesn't understand it. So what me and my wife, our level of healing would appear like magic. Actually,
Amen.
our doctor, we
Yeah.
had the same doctor who had no input whatsoever. She had no idea what was going on. We were like, "Do you want to know?" She's like, "No, I don't want to know. I have no idea what you're doing. I don't know why you guys are healing. Um, I don't want to know." Her macular degeneration healed. Dr. Kate Shanahan, I recommend to every single client to get her book, Dark Calories or Fat Burn Fix. The whole world owes a debt of gratitude to Dr. Kate Shanahan. And she goes over in very understandable ways how seed oils lock us, they prevent our ability to burn fat. So what's important about that, and I saw this happening, I knew about it because I was part of the Primal Blueprint and the paleo and primal community, which was all over seed oils, decades and decades ago. But somebody going low carb, high fat that was unaware, I don't know if this has happened to you, they might be doing the processed low carb, high fat that is filled with seed oils, and that just will not work. So the fats prevent our mitochondria, which are our energy burners, from burning fat. So they lock us into glucose dependence. So that means once we're having seed oils at just the average level of the average American, we're going to be chronically hungry and not be able to burn our body fat well. And I was in a low carb Breckenridge conference, and it's on YouTube. So low carb Breckenridge, Michael Eads, and he actually shows the Krebs cycle and mitochondria. And he actually takes, believe it or not, French fries, one fried in beef tallow and one fried in seed oil, and goes over the actual step-by-step within our mitochondria, why with the seed oils it's inflammatory and hunger producing, and the same potato fried in beef tallow would not be.
That's I would love to see that. I'll definitely check that out. And I think that's kind of a good segue into talking about the elimination diet and Whole30, something, that, and for me, when I try that with clients, I do kind of the light version, right? I'll do hey, why don't you just take out that food for 10 days and see how you feel, as opposed to doing the whole kind of Whole30 thing. How do you get with your clients to do these kind of more I don't know if extreme is the right word. Yeah, it feels
Yeah.
pretty extreme.
First, I always
Cuttings
let them
of
know that
Whole30.
if I'm suggesting anything, ask me the whys, and I'm only going to suggest things that are return on investment. But before I go to paleo, and I'm a big fan of paleo and primal, which is paleo, but it allows dairy. I focus every client on what I call the big four. So the big four. So let's focus. And I've had clients and I've worked with people from vegetarian to carnivore, and the commonality, and then all the vegetarians and carnivores can get along and hug one another and be in one giant healing, healthy, whole food family as we should be. So we all want to focus on the big four, and those are sugar or high fructose corn syrup, sugar in the 100 forms that it is now, refined carbs, primarily seed oils, of course, that we mentioned, and then the emperor of all maladies, ultra processed food, which is ironically is refined carbs, sugar of some sort, might be maltodextrin or high fructose corn syrup, seed oils, right? So it's all three of the other things we should avoid. And then who knows what, food coloring, MSG.
Of course, seed oil's in all of those, right? Like if you just cut the seed oil out, you probably won't get
Absolutely.
many. It'll
And
be
I
a lot
will tell
easier to
clients,
avoid all of
if
those.
you're not at the level of all whole real foods and you're buying anything in a package, if it has a seed oil, just put it right back. Don't even look, read the labels, stop right there. But
Doesn't that make it so easy? If somebody knows if they're just going to try to avoid seed oil, whether they're fully bought in or not, if they simply kind of can grasp that a little bit and just accept it a little bit, and they start looking at all these labels, everything that's not really good for them will generally have that seed oil in it. If they can just do that,
makes it easy.
Makes it easy.
Dr. Kate Shanahan, her website is drcate.com, and she'll have the infographics on what are seed oils and what to avoid. Or you can just on your phone look up the Hateful Eight. So really, when you think about it, and it's interesting to me because every carnivore healing story, and I'm a fan if that works for someone, and most of my calories are animal based foods. All the healing happened in well-formulated vegetarian and in primal and paleo. And again, what do all of those have in common? People are not having the big four that I just listed. Now, I try and protect people from my own influence. That's a quote by Bruce Lee. A good teacher protects his pupils from his own influence. So what I like about Primal is basically whole real foods, none of the big four, plus if people want to experiment, no grains. And here's how I make the distinction. I healed, and my wife did, with Primal instead of paleo because I never had any bad reaction to dairy ever. So dairy is incredibly nutrient dense, and many humans thrive with quality dairy. So there was no reason for me personally to take dairy out.
Yeah.
So what I ask clients is, do you digest it well? Do you have acne? But when I was deciding on what diet I wanted to heal with, there was no evidence that I had in my life to take dairy out, but I had abundant evidence that every time I ate grains, and not just wheat, barley or rye, especially corn, things went to heck in a handbasket. So I was open. And ironically, I'm more addicted to wheat than I am to sugar. And we're often addicted, and I tell my clients this, and it's very helpful. We're often most addicted to the foods. And I remember telling you this in a community meeting at the fasting method. We're often most addicted to the foods that are most inflammatory for us. I think it was peanut butter or something, because foods that are inflammatory to any individual will have a morphine-like response to the inflammation. So I was super addicted to wheat, and it is probably wheat and corn, and ironically peanut butter, which I'm also addicted to, are my three most inflammatory foods.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And peanut butter is my secret girlfriend my wife's okay with. That's a really good segue into, for me, when I'm working with my men, the whole thing is I use something called being metabolically conscious. And that means seeing the whole picture. It's really of all behaviors, but let's just focus on food because that's the segue here, right? And it's about understanding what food choice behaviors help your metabolism, help your body, and which ones don't. And then making sure that the aggregate of those choices is definitely way in the favor of helping you. Because if you do that, then you can make other choices like me and my peanut butter that maybe don't support my metabolism as much or might cause a little bit of, inflammation or things. But at the same time, they really support my pleasure in life, my deep joy of enjoying peanut butter. I love it, right? And I don't drink, I don't do all these things. I'm not anything special, that we don't talk about here, but I'm just, so that peanut butter is important. And if I can eat in that way, and I'm not eating junk food, and that's what I teach my clients. I teach my clients to, look, it's your ball. You get to make the choice. Just know if this causes this, so if it does cause you a little inflammation, okay, just be aware. It could be better if you got rid of that. Is it worth whatever you're getting? And then you make that decision. I think you call that food freedom, but it's probably a bigger, I don't know. I want you to talk about food freedom because I love that name, food freedom. It sounds like really good.
Yeah. Food.
So why don't you share that?
So at Healing with the Diamonds, we were thinking, what are three of the things that both Kalynne and I found healed us and helped us heal family members who came to us? First, we were tracking them down. Don't track people down. Wait till they're ready to heal. And so those three pillars are food freedom, metabolic healing, the science of healing, seed oils and stuff, and joyful practices that we call this. But it was interesting. Both Kalynne and I, John, it was unbelievable. We were both slow starters, but we were never hungry a single day. We never stalled. Once we got rolling, each of us was losing like an inch or two a month and 10 pounds a month effortlessly.
When I see pictures of you and your wife, I'm just like it just shows that it's a lie that people can't have the health that they want, that they can't heal themselves, that they can't go from diabetic to
and that they can't achieve food freedom. It's so important. So let me define food freedom because it is core to Healing with the Diamonds. And I hope some of this will help. I'm learning from you. You're learning from me. I want to continue our collaboration and get better, each of us. But food freedom is a way of eating we love that loves us back. And one of the gigantic mistakes people make is to think that their food preferences are set in stone even when they're adults. So I started at 47, shortly before 48. And the less I had of the big four, the less I craved it. The more whole, real food I had, the more I craved it. Oh, and there was one thing, and I'm not ashamed of this at all, the amount of food I could eat. So I told you corn is very inflammatory for me. So if we went to a Mexican restaurant, I'm not at all exaggerating. I could eat 6 to 8 baskets of the corn chip and salsa just by myself. I don't know, what is that, 4,000 calories, then eat the entire meal. So I would probably easily have 7,000 calories in one meal. It was my hunger, my capacity to eat was absolutely endless. So I want to give this example of how profoundly our taste preferences can change. I was addicted to Reese's peanut butter cups in any form, the eggs, so at Halloween, you know how they have those gigantic bags for like 30 kids? I could eat 3 bags by myself.
Oh, I know.
Just,
you got me.
Yeah.
You beat me. I did a bag
friends,
one night
so
with
I
some
could
friends.
do
I
3 by
about
myself.
it, and I was like, you guys remember when I did that?
So I decided, not out of morality or this, like, ooh, look at me, I'm going to be, but I simply, that was no longer a food or thing that I was choosing to have. So I started in May, and then I love tennis. I was in a tennis league at the time. Bizarrely, I could still play tennis even at 290 pounds. So I'm lucky for that. I can play tennis much better now. But at the tennis Christmas party, there were some of the peanut butter cups. So I was like, and I did this mindful. I'm like, let me see what they taste like. And it was unbelievable, John. I was so used to high fat by that time. They had no mouthfeel. They felt like chalk. And I was having some 80% plus dark chocolate. So they tasted like chalk and sand and no chocolate. So this isn't me being, oh, look at me, Larry Diamond. It was the transition from something I had been addicted to for decades. From May to December, my appreciation or my taste bud had changed. And let me also give this to you. The rest of the meal is going to really cement food freedom. So I live in Central Texas. So the catering was fajitas. So what I did, it was like unlimited fajitas. So I had all the beef fajitas I wanted and guacamole and sour cream and cheese. And I felt like I was the king of the world. So I had salsa because it's in my way of eating. I did not have the rice and beans. And actually, speaking of primal, it asked people to consider not having legumes and beans and not having grains. I'm going after your
going
peanuts,
after my
but we'll
peanuts
get
again.
back to legumes. There's ways to have legumes. But the point was that I love beef fajitas. I love salsa. I love cheese. I love guacamole. And I love sour cream. So I did not feel deprived at that tennis party. I had the best eating experience, and I also chose foods that loved me back. So that's food freedom, a way of eating we love that loves us back. There you go.
I love that. And the thing is that people feel they don't think that's possible. They can't imagine that there's a way where they'd have plenty of food. It would taste great. They'd even have freedom to break the rules, but they really wouldn't want to. Because, for me, I used to just love my donuts. My son would be like, Daddy, you just ate 4 boxes of donuts, Daddy. And the thing was, because I was never happy. There was never enough donuts. And now I don't even want to eat it because I'm just like, I want to have your meal you just said. And I'll eat as much as I want. And then at the end, maybe I'll have some 95% dark chocolate. And I'll try chocolate, and I don't even like milk chocolate.
It's like, and you notice that you could eat that many donuts because what are they? They're wheat, sugar, fried in a seed oil. So they have so much seed oil in them. So of course, any human, no matter what their level of willpower, is going to not be able to stop eating donuts. And this magical thing happened. Part of food freedom is the occasional, is it worth it treat. So the original word of treat was infrequent. So we're both fans of the great scientist. He's both a PhD and an MD, Robert Lustig. Sugar the Bitter Truth on YouTube has like 100 million views. He was asked, great. I was listening to an interview, not that one, where the interviewer said, Dr. Lustig, do you ever have dessert? And he's like, yeah, once in a while. But he said, the problem is that in the modern world, every single meal and every single coffee and every single snack is dessert now. No human can have health having dessert 8 times a day.
So many men don't really kind of think about that rationally and just go, okay, if you're eating sugar, like just don't even worry about the science. Like you just know, like if you're eating sugar all day, do you really think that, is that really going to
right? But I also want to point out how much our bodies are on our side, because 100 or 150 years ago, maybe 200, Americans ate 5 pounds of sugar on average a year. Now it's like 125 or 30. So honestly, every man eating the standard American diet should be 2,000 pounds by age 30. So that's how much our bodies are trying to deal with the standard diet. I mean, think of that. We're eating 120 more pounds of sugar a year. So the fact that I was only
Yeah, it's
290 pounds at 47 was my body on my side.
And the thing about it is a good segue here. It's like, the problem is that because that is the norm, because that is standard, because that's what everybody's doing, and that's what daddy always did, and mommy always made this, and baby always watched that, and everybody watched all this. When daddy stops doing that or mommy stops doing that, it's kind of like, is
Yes.
something wrong? Like, what are you doing? And I find one of the biggest challenges I have with my men that I'm supporting is their family, their loved ones. And, their why is like my family, but their family is the one who's going, hey, you should eat, like you're not eating, or you should
Yeah.
have don't you want some bread on that hamburger? This is a little weird. Are what are you doing? And, for me, what I find with my clients is, it's a big one, is having them pair fasting with behavioral fasting. And a big one would be pleasing. Like, so let's try not behaving in a way to please others, or let's try not seeking approval while we're fasting over the next 2 days. And this way it can kind of work as a safeguard when people start saying, hey, why aren't you eating? And that now the man is saying, hey, actually, I'm not eating because I feel great. I can think, I'm clear. I woke up in the morning. I've got power and energy. The scale's dropping and I love the way that I look. That's why I'm not eating. I'm not going to eat. Sorry, you're not comfortable with it. What do you do to help
Yeah,
people through that
yeah. So
massive pushback
what
from,
I love
society?
that you brought this up because it's so common. In my 6 years as a fasting coach for the fasting method, this would come up for both men and male and female clients. So it was whoever was going first in the family. And this, I'm so glad I have a big smile because I was the first one to heal in me and Kalynne's partnership. And by far the best thing I've ever done with my lifetime and ever could do with my lifetime is to be the person who inspired and coached Kalynne to her health renaissance. And
How did,
yeah, so
how did you do that? You helped your
it
wife?
it
I mean, like
no,
that's
here's what I'll
impossible.
tell you exactly how it happened. And I remember the first, it
I'm
was a
just saying,
Saturday, my first full day of my chosen way of eating. Oh, this is huge with my clients. I ask them to never say, you can't have anything, but you're choosing not to have it. So I never said that I can't have bread, I can't have a donut, I can't have a Reese's peanut butter cup. Rather, I said I'm choosing not to. So that's the key sense of empowerment. If you say you can't, then this imaginary boogeyman is restricting your freedom. But guess what? There's no imaginary boogeyman. I haven't met a human being on planet Earth who can't have unlimited junk 365, 24/7. So there's no boogeyman saying, but we're choosing. So here was my breakthrough, John. I remember I was upstairs and I was sicker than Kalynne, and I had reached what I call my go time. I had my whys, which was her and our daughter. I didn't want to leave them. So I said, Larry Diamond, me, I am ready to not have grains. I am ready to not have sugar. I am ready to not have the big four. And here was the brilliant thing, John. I said, Kalynne, my best friend, my partner, gets no say in what I'm eating from this perspective. I cannot link my eating choices even to my best friend. I had that brilliant insight. And if the most important person in the world gets no say, then a lifelong friend, a
yeah.
coworker doesn't. But I never had to tell her. I didn't actually say, hey, hon, you get no say. I simply internalized that. And I also talked with her. I
Yeah.
talked with her and I said, Here's the science of why I'm doing it. Here's why fat is healthy.
Right.
Let's give it a try. And she knows how good a scientist I am. I don't have a PhD in science. I was in PhD in geography. So I do have a master's of science. I don't want to misinform people, but she knows how, when I'm interested in something, I'm like a bull terrier, and she trusted my scientific acumen. So she was like, hun, you go for it. And here's the magic that happened. She decided to change because not only of my results, and not only weight, but happier, a kinder, better husband and dad, more joyful, but also, check it out, I never complained. I modeled food freedom to her. I was like, this food's amazing. So why would she not want to take the plunge? Somebody asked her on one of our first interviews together, why did you decide to do this? And she said, well, yeah, he was losing weight and she wasn't as sick as me. So she was more motivated by weight loss at first. And then the health was like, oh my God. But she said he never complained. I started because he never complained. There was nothing for me to complain. I enjoyed every meal, food freedom. I enjoyed not being hungry. John, in 30 days of consistent protein and fat, I was able to skip a meal. Well, first I was able to get from breakfast to lunch in about 10 days. And I was always eating like every hour on the hour. But then in a month, I was having 2 meals a day, which was mind blowing.
With everything that you had shared about eating so much and always being hungry. That
From
was just
always
like
hungry
a
to 2
massive
meals a
switch
day
for
in
you. It
30
was like
days.
almost unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
And it's so crazy, the power to heal ourselves with food, isn't it? Just to heal ourselves with food, water, movement, and behavior. And I love modern medicine. I think I said to you recently, I said, if I were in a car wreck, I want to be in the best hospital with the best scientific equipment and everything taking care of me. But if I'm just healing a chronic condition, just give me water, food,
And
movement,
fasting.
sunlight.
Fasting is literally giving our bodies a break from eating. Think about Hippocrates observed thousands of years ago, all health begins in the gut. Think about on the modern standard diet when we're eating 6, 8, 10, 12 times a day, whereas ancestrally we ate 3 times or less. If we're eating 10 times a day, that means by the time we're 30 years old, our gut has been used as much as a 100-year-old gut. So we're wearing our guts out. We're giving them foods that inflame them. We have gut dysbiosis. We have candida. I say that the standard American diet leads to the standard American gut. And there's a gut-brain connection. So when our guts are inflamed, our brains are inflamed. So I honestly, John, I'm going to say this flat out because men need to hear this. I think most marital problems and most divorces are because of the standard American diet. We suck as human beings on the standard American diet. I'm just throwing it out. You want to keep your marriage intact, you got to swivel away. I'm keeping it real. I've always loved history, so I could see how what is common today is totally abnormal.
I want to segue in. And I think one of the great things from fasting is giving up control, that you learn to kind of lay back into the process. So I think you wanted to kind of ask some questions about when we were working together.
Yeah, well, thanks for that opportunity, John. So we met each other at the fasting method. You were part of the community. I was a fasting coach that had individual clients and small group clients and also led community meetings. What do you remember from the eating strategies?
I mean, what I remember most, was coming there, coming there as a coach, looking to learn, looking to see what is outside of my bubble here. I was developing my own fasting method to add to what I was doing with my clients and myself, because I was healing myself, and you were so open and excited about me becoming the master of all the information that I wanted to voraciously intake, and you didn't, a lot of people would be very threatened by that as a coach, but you were not threatened by me with my paper and my pen. Like, I'm sitting there like interviewing you about stuff because it was really important. I knew good coaches get coached, and I knew that I needed to put myself there. I've spent probably $20,000 in my life on coaching for me because I know that I have to invest in myself, especially when I ask other people to do it, right? I have to believe in it. And I take that into my coaching now, for sure. I'm not afraid of somebody learning more. Hey, learn more than me, become the master. Like, go and do what you need to do to really have and own this. My goal is with every man who comes into Fast Fit 40 Up to walk out the master of their body, the master of their metabolism, the master of their life, right? And I had a guy the other day, one of my clients, and he said, oh, I got this from ChatGPT. I don't feel offended or anything. You have so much to offer. And I said, offended? I'm excited you went there. Like, I want you to get to a place where you're using every resource around you and you know how to do it and you don't need me. That's the whole point. Go fly, man. I'm excited, and whatever I can do, just let me know. And so I'm actually still working with him because now we're putting on muscle and we're going to that next stage where he wants to just build his body out. And I'm working with him now more as like, I'm his corner man. I'm there to give him that support. And I think that's the biggest thing we can do sometimes. And I think you do that really well too. You're there to support people.
That's very kind. There's an ancient Taoist saying, Lao Tzu, 2,500-year-old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. When the student is truly ready, the teacher is of no need.
So that's how we know we did our job, right? And you did that well, and I try to do that well with my students, and it's great, man. Well, listen, it's so amazing to have you on here. I'm so excited that we've stayed friends and connected, and I'm so excited about what you and Kalynne are doing at Healing with the Diamonds. Do you want to give your, how people contact you? Because, people may want to contact you to get some coaching or some help. So how do they do that? Or just check you out. Just check out your social media.
We have a great website now, which is healingwiththediamonds.com. And there's a contact page. People can sign up for the newsletter. Newsletters are coming out now. And then there's a consulting page, and you'll be able to email me. And we have 3 types of consulting: with me, with Kalynne, and Kalynne's going to be so valuable for women with families and kids that are still living at home. So you have the option of consulting with me, consulting with her, or consulting with both of us. So we're excited. This is something that we hadn't seen being offered, but family healing. And so there's those 3 types of consulting. There's links to our podcast, which is on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, Healing with the Diamonds podcast. My email is very simple. It's Larry@healingwiththediamonds.com. Kalynne is KAYLYNNE at healingwiththediamonds.com. We're going to have our blog to go along with our newsletter. We've started Substack. We are on Instagram. Please support us there. And we have a Facebook page, Healing with the Diamonds HQ. And we're doing live there, John, and it's so exciting. We did a Coffee with the Diamonds, which is our Ask Us Anything.
Thanks for joining us here for Metabolically Conscious and Fast Fit 40 Up. We'll see you next time.